The room smells of lemon polish and expensive wool, a scent that usually signals safety. Not today. My father sits at the mahogany table, his silver hair catching the fluorescent hum of the courtroom lights. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't have to. Harlan Lawson destroys you with a whisper and a perfectly tailored cufflink. He looks immaculate, the picture of a grieving, burdened patriarch, while he slides a manila folder toward the bench. Then comes the jolt. She never served, he says, his tone flat clinical. The desert didn't break her, she just used our name to hide from herself. She's a ghost, Your Honor, a thief of a legacy she never earned. The air leaves my lungs. It's a visceral erasure, a surgical strike on every mile I marched and every life I saved in the dust of Kandahar. I sit alone, no high-priced legal team, no paper trail to defend my sanity. Just me, the scars on my palms, and the trained, absolute silence of a soldier who knows she's being hunted. I am a single point of grit against the polished machinery of the Lawson estate. Beneath my skin, a tremor starts, a violent, hidden vibration of the spring winding to its breaking point. I keep my hands flat on the table, stoic, still. I look up, meeting the unreadable gaze of Judge Elias Vance. He holds my eyes for a fraction of a second, longer than the law requires. It's a flicker, a shadow of recognition that cuts through my father's truth. In that moment, the debt is recorded, and I am the only one who knows how much it's going to cost him. The Arizona sun is not a light, it is a weight. It presses against the nape of my neck, smelling of scorched stone and the metallic tang of oxidized iron. I stand at the edge of a jagged ravine in the Mojave, my boots sinking into the fine, alkaline dust. 20 feet below, the skeletal remains of a downed cargo drone lie twisted like the ribcage of a prehistoric beast. This is my domain. As the CEO of Lawson Tactical Logistics, I do not manage spreadsheets in air-conditioned suites. I manage the physical reclamation of failure. I wipe a smear of hydraulic fluid from my forehead. My hands are scarred and steady. I don't mind the grease. It's honest. It doesn't lie to you like a legal brief or a cocktail party smile. My team moves with the silent, practiced efficiency of a specialized unit. We are recovering a prototype sensor, array, a piece of hardware worth more than the manicured Greenwich estate I grew up in. I feel the familiar, ice-cold clarity of the desert. Out here, there is no room for the performative grief or the gilded lies of the East Coast. There is only the wind, the heat, and the mission. Cable set, Miller grunts from the floor of the ravine. Check the tension on the north winch, I say. My voice is low, gravelly from the dust. Copy that, boss. I watch the steel lines go taut. The groaning of the machinery is the only music I need. But then the rhythm breaks. My phone vibrates against my hip. It's an intrusive, rhythmic pulse that feels like a breach of my perimeter. I pull it from my tactical vest. The screen is washed out by the glare, but the header is a flashbang to the senses. A legal notification. A service of process. I scroll. The desert around me begins to blur as the validation gap opens wide. Harlan Lawson, my father, has finally released the hammer. He's filed an emergency petition for temporary conservatorship. I read the words, but I hear his voice, that practiced, cello-like vibration of a man who has spent 60 years perfecting the art of the burdened patriarch. He has told a judge in Connecticut that I am a ghost. He says I am shattered by Kandahar, unglued by PTSD, and drifting through a haze of substance abuse. The injustice of it is a physical pressure in my chest. It's a spring winding tighter, coil by agonizing coil. He describes me as incapacitated. He tells the court I am unable to perform basic self-care. He calls me a danger to the Lawson legacy. I look at my hands. They are covered in the black blood of a machine. They are the hands that patched a sucking chest wound in a dust storm. They are the hands currently extracting a $20 million asset from a canyon. Incapacitated. I feel the familiar scent of burnt metal from the drone wreckage, the same smell that lived in my hair for 18 months in the Middle East. It triggers a flash, a cooling engine in a dark valley, the smell of ozone before a storm. My father is trying to pathologize my survival. He is weaponizing my silence and my distance, transforming my professional stoicism into a symptom of a mental break. He wants the $15 million timber trust grandmother Helen left to me. He's a scavenger. He thinks because I walked away from his world, I've forgotten how to defend my own. I scan the final page of the filing. My eyes lock onto the signature of the public notary who verified Harlan's affidavit. Arthur Miller. I stop breathing for a heartbeat. I know that name. Arthur Miller was grandmother Helen's gardener. He used to give me peppermint candies when I was 6. He was a good man. He also died of a stroke 3 months ago. A sharp, predatory calm settles over me. The soldier's stoicism isn't a mask, it's a weapon system. My father hasn't just lied to save face. He's been sloppy, he's desperate. He committed forgery to trigger this takeover because his own empire is rotting from the inside out. Winches maxed, Maya, we holding, Miller shouts from below. I look down at the ravine. The sensor array is hovering, suspended between the earth and the sky. Double the load-bearing straps, I call back. My voice is flat, dead. We're bringing it home. I drop the phone into my cargo pocket. I don't call my lawyer. I don't call my father. I don't give him the satisfaction of my anger. He wants a breakdown. I'll give him a breakdown. I'll let the world think the ghost has finally vanished. Harlan Lawson thinks he's built a cage around me with his forged signatures and his high society whispers. He doesn't realize he's just given me the coordinates for the strike. In the military, we were taught that a perimeter is only as strong as its weakest link. Harlan is the link, and I just found the crack. The winch groans again. I feel the weight of the mission in my marrow. The debt of justice has just been recorded. My father is playing for my inheritance. I'm playing for his extinction. The dry heat of the Mojave is a ghost now. In Talon, the cold doesn't just touch you, it hunts you. It seeks the gaps in your layers and the cracks in your resolve. I stand by the window of a sparse, brutalist apartment on the edge of the old town. It smells of radiator dust and the faint, briny rot of the Baltic Sea. Outside, the sky is the color of a bruised lung. Medieval spires pierce the fog like rusted bayonets. I have vanished. To the lawyers in Greenwich and the gossips at the Round Hill Club, I am a runaway. A tragic casualty of Kandahar, spiraling into a dark hole in Northern Europe. I let them believe it. In the military, you learn that the best way to survive an ambush is to be where the enemy isn't looking. I sit at a long steel desk. 3 monitors bathe the room in a clinical blue light. My father, Harlan, has managed to lock me out of my primary logistics servers in the States. He's used the temporary conservatorship to freeze the administrative nodes. He thinks he's cut my oxygen. He doesn't know about the mirror sites. He doesn't know about the black fiber cables running into Estonia. I tap a command, access denied. I try again, routing through a VPN in Reykjavik, access denied. My pulse doesn't spike. My breathing stays rhythmic, 478. Tactical breathing is a habit now, as natural as checking my 6. But beneath the ribs, the spring is winding. Someone has done more than just freeze my accounts. I attempt to pull my own military service records, the evidence of my commendations, my medical clearances, the proof that I was the one who kept it together when the world went loud. The screen stays blank for 10 seconds. Then, a red banner, restricted by executive order. I stare at the pixels. My record isn't just locked, it's being scrubbed. This isn't my father. Harlan Lawson is a king in Connecticut, but he doesn't have the clearance to slap a federal seal on a soldier's file. Someone in the shadows is keeping my life behind a digital curtain. Someone is helping him erase me. I move to the corner of the room. On a wooden chair sits the Monopoly board box. It's a relic. It shouldn't be here, but it's the only thing that followed me from the desert. I run my fingers over the cardboard. It's frayed at the edges, smelling faintly of the peppermint tea grandmother Helen used to brew. Maya, she'd say, her voice as sharp as a tactical knife. The properties are the distraction. The bank is the power. If you don't build a wall around your money, your father will build a cage around you. I peel back the felt lining of the box. My fingers are steady, though the air in the room feels thin. In the false bottom lies a small, leather-bound ledger. I open it. The scent of peppermint drifts up, and for a second, the gray Baltic fog is replaced by the golden light of a sunroom in Greenwich. I flip through the pages. The handwriting is hers, elegant, fluid, but with a hidden aggression. This isn't a diary. It's a manual audit of my father's hidden life. She'd been tracking the rot for years. She saw the cracks in the mirror, long before his real estate empire began to bleed. She recorded the shell companies, the offshore transfers, the names of the men he bought to keep the Lawson name polished. I stop at an entry dated a year before her death. One name, underlined twice in red ink. Elias Vance. My eyes narrow. Judge Elias Vance is the man currently presiding over my conservatorship. According to Helen's notes, Vance didn't just know my grandmother, he was the primary beneficiary of a Lawson cleanup 30 years ago. Harlan didn't just help a friend. He buried a bribery scandal that would have ended Vance's career before it started. The judge isn't a neutral arbiter. He's a piece on the board Harlan has owned since the beginning. I hear a metallic clatter from the street below, a trash bin lid hitting the cobblestones. The sound is a trigger. Clack, it's the sound of a bolt carrier group locking into place. I smell it again, the scent from the Mojave from the drone wreckage. Burnt metal, ozone, it sticks to the back of my throat like a memory I can't cough up. Harlan thinks he's replaced Maya Lawson with a tragic story. He thinks he's won because I am silent. He doesn't realize that in the shadows of Talon, the ghost is finally starting to speak. I reach for my secure satellite uplink. I don't call Sarah my lawyer, I don't call Caleb, I need a different kind of professional, I call Kona. We met during a recovery op in Jakarta. He can find a single cent in a hurricane of data. Maya, his voice is a low rasp. Kona, I say, my voice is flat, dead. I'm sending you a file, Arthur Miller, death certificate, compare the signature on the attached affidavit. Harlan's work. His forgery, I need the trail, Kona. I need the blood, not the money. Audit the petitioner. Find out who's locking my files. Consider it done. Where are you? I'm nowhere, I say. I hang up, I stand by the window again. The Baltic Sea is dark now, the color of a shallow grave. Harlan wants to play for the legacy. He wants the 15 million. He wants the girl who stayed silent. I look at the peppermint ledger. The spring is at maximum tension. I am Maya Lawson. I am a soldier, an architect, and a CEO. And I'm about to show my father what happens when you try to build a cage around a woman who knows exactly how to dismantle the locks. The cold in Talon is different from the Mojave. In the desert, the sun tries to bake you alive. Here, the frost is a silent auditor. It seeks the gaps in your layers and the cracks in your resolve. I sit in the dim light of my studio, the only sound the low, mechanical hum of a localized server tower. Outside, the gray Baltic light is dying. On the steel desk before me lies grandmother Helen's Monopoly box. It is an artifact of a childhood spent learning the mechanics of power while other children learn to play fair. I run my thumb over the leather-bound ledger I retrieved from the false bottom. The scent of peppermint is a sensory bridge, pulling me back to a sun-drenched sunroom in Greenwich. I remember her hands, spotted with age but steady as a sniper's. She would stack those orange paper bills and explain the concept of a corporate veil. Maya, she'd say, the smell of peppermint tea thick in the air. The properties are the distraction. The bank is the power. If you don't build a wall around your money, your father will build a cage around you. She knew even then. She was born into a family of scavengers, and she recognized the hunger in her own son's eyes long before I did. I flip to the middle of the book. The elegant, fluid script of my grandmother changes. The entries dated after her supposed passing are written in a hurried, sharper hand, one I recognize from the margins of my own tactical notebooks. These are the encrypted logs of her final years. The world thought she was slipping into senility. In reality, she was conducting a silent audit of her own blood. My eyes track the numbers. The mystery of my locked military files starts to bleed into these pages. I find a series of offshore routing numbers linked to a name, Silas Vane. Vane, he's my father's shadow partner, a man who exists in the white space between legal real estate and predatory lending. According to Helen's notes, Vane didn't just invest in Lawson projects, he bought the Lawson soul. I find a ledger entry titled The Vance Contingency. It isn't a debt of money. It is a record of a night 30 years ago, a hit-and-run involving a young, intoxicated Elias Vance. My father didn't just help a friend. He buried the evidence and replaced the police report. I stare at the page. Judge Elias Vance isn't just a biased arbiter in my conservatorship. He is a man whose entire life is a house of cards built on a Lawson lie. If I am declared insane, this ledger, the only empirical evidence of their crimes, becomes the delusions of a madwoman. My sanity is the only thing keeping these men out of a federal penitentiary. The spring in my chest winds tighter. The scent of peppermint no longer feels like a memory, it feels like a call to arms. I reach for my secure satellite uplink. I don't call my lawyer, I don't call my brother, I call Kona. Kona, talk to me. I tracked the routing numbers, Maya. Your father isn't just bleeding the trust. He's funneled $300,000 to a holding company in the Caymans in the last 60 days. The company is registered to Silas Vane. What about Arthur Miller's signature? It's a perfect forgery, but the ink is wrong. It's a pressurized ballpoint, the kind Harlan uses. Miller only ever used fountain pens. His arthritis wouldn't let him use anything else. I have the forensic comparison ready. Good, hold it, don't move yet. Maya, they're closing the perimeter. They've flagged your passport. Let them flag it, I say. My voice is a flat, low-frequency hum. I'm not leaving Talon yet. I'm moving the mirror sights to the Baltic backbone. If they want to find me, they'll have to dig through 4 layers of encrypted ice. I hang up and stand by the window. I see a flicker of blue light in the courtyard 3 stories down, a reflection, a cigarette ember. Someone is watching the building. I smell it again, the scent from the Mojave from the drone wreckage. Burnt metal, ozone, it's the smell of a machine that's been pushed past its tolerances. I look at the peppermint ledger. My father thinks he's built a cage of legal paper and high society whispers. He doesn't realize he's just given me the coordinates for the strike. He wants the 15 million. He wants the girl who stayed silent. I'm going to give him the soldier who knows how to audit. The audit isn't just about the money anymore. It's about the blood. I close the ledger. The spring is at maximum tension. I am Maya Lawson, and I am the only one holding the bank. The desert wind has returned, but it isn't the clean, baking heat of the Mojave. It's a ghost in the speakers of my laptop. I am back at a secure mobile outpost in the Arizona high country, the dust scratching rhythmically against the corrugated steel of the trailer. The air inside smells of ozone, old coffee, and the sharp, chemical tang of the server racks. My screen flickers, a video message from my younger brother, Caleb. I sit perfectly still. My hands are flat on the desk. This is the posture I learned in the dark during the long waits between extractions. Stillness is a weapon. It lets you see the movement in the shadows. Caleb's face fills the frame. He's pale. His eyes are rimmed with the red of a man who hasn't slept in 48 hours. He looks small, swallowed by the expensive leather chair he's sitting in. Maya, he whispers, his voice cracks. They say you're dangerous. They say the desert broke you. Dad says if you just sign the timber rights over to the stabilization fund, we can finally be a family again. Please, I'm scared. He's performing. It's a script Harlan wrote, but Caleb was always a poor actor. He was the one who cried when he lost at Monopoly, while I was the one who quietly bought the utilities and waited for the rent. I don't listen to his words. Words are for the weak. I analyze the friction of reality. I zoom in on the reflection in the window behind him. Harlan told the family Caleb was at a private retreat in Sedona, helping coordinate my care. He's supposed to be surrounded by red rocks and spiritual healing. The reflection says otherwise. I see a specific, ornate wrought iron gate. I see the distinct, ivy-covered brick of the Lawson carriage house in Greenwich. The sunlight is wrong for Arizona. It has the filtered, hazy quality of a Connecticut afternoon. The twist, Caleb isn't in a retreat. He's a prisoner of his own inheritance. My father hasn't just lied about my mental state. He has sold my brother's freedom to Sela's vein as collateral for his mounting debts. The $40,000, medical donations, Harlan is harvesting from our aunts, and uncles aren't for my rehab. They are interest payments to keep Vane from foreclosing on the Lawson name. The injustice is a visceral heat in my marrow. My father has turned his son into a hostage to fund the erasure of his daughter. I watch Caleb's hand tremble as he reaches to turn off the camera. I see the faint, yellowing bruise on his wrist, the grip mark of a man who doesn't know how to let go. I pull up a satellite map of the Greenwich estate. I could call the local precinct, but I know how the money flows. The Greenwich police are funded by Lawson Gala donations. The courts are overseen by Judge Vance. The system is a closed loop. This isn't a job for the law. It's a job for a recovery specialist. I smell it again, the scent from the Mojave from the drone wreckage. Burnt metal. Ozone. It's the smell of a machine that's been pushed past its tolerances, a system on the verge of structural collapse. I begin to map the digital extraction protocol. If my father wants to use my breakdown as a weapon, I will give him exactly what he fears. A soldier who knows how to infiltrate a fortress from the inside out. I look at the still frame of Caleb's face. He looks like a ghost. He doesn't realize he's the bait in a trap I'm about to turn on the hunter. The spring in my chest is at maximum tension. I don't feel anger. I feel the cold, sharp focus of a tactical plan. My father thinks he's built a cage of mahogany and lies to protect his vanity. He doesn't realize that in the high desert, I've spent 18 months learning exactly how to tear down cages. Miller, I say, my voice a flat, low-frequency hum into the comms. Yes, Maya. Source the blueprints for the Greenwich carriage house. Every wire, every sensor, every drain. You going in? No, I say. I look at the silver whistle, the U-by key hanging around my neck. I'm already inside, he just doesn't know it yet. I hang up. The wind outside the trailer picks up, a mourning sound against the steel. The rescue mission has officially shifted from the desert to the home front. The debt of justice is no longer a projection, it's a target. The high-altitude air in the Mojave rattles the corrugated steel of my command unit. It is a rhythmic, hollow sound, like a drum made of dead things. Inside, the atmosphere is refrigerated and sterile. It smells of ozone, silicon, and the bitter, dark roast coffee I used to keep my heart rate pinned to a tactical baseline. On my primary monitor, a live digital feed from the Laramie County District Court plays in a muted window. I sit perfectly still. My hands are flat on the cold metal of the desk. My father, Harlan Lawson, is center stage. He is sitting at a mahogany table that likely costs more than the truck I'm sitting in. He looks noble, weary, the perfect picture of a patriarch carrying a heavy cross. He is presenting the Swiss solution. His attorney, a man with a voice like polished marble and a soul like a dry well, is submitting a forged invoice from the Institut de Mentel St. Moritz. The total $1.2 million, a non-refundable deposit for my imminent, involuntary commitment. Harlan's hand is steady as he slides the paper toward the judge. He is betting everything on the validation gap. He thinks that because I am a ghost in the desert, I am incapable of a counterstrike. He believes that once the judge approves the release of those funds from my timber trust, he can satisfy Sela's Vane's thugs and bury me in a psychiatric ward until the paperwork matches the lie. I watch his face. He permits himself a small, smug tightening of the lips. He thinks the compressed spring of my resistance has finally snapped under the weight of his legal maneuver. He is wrong. In the military, they teach you that an ambush is only successful if the target doesn't know the terrain. Harlan sees a bank account. I see a network. I open a secondary terminal. My fingers move with the muscle memory of a field tech. I am not blocking the transfer. Blocking is defensive, and I am moving into a kinetic offensive. As the judge's gavel hovers, I infiltrate the trust's distribution gateway. I don't stop the $1.2 million from leaving. I wrap it. I embed a layer of blockchain-based, smart contract code into the digital packet of the wire transfer. It's a surgical strike on the data stream. The money exits the trust. On the courtroom screen, the status bar moves. Processing, transfer initiated. But the funds do not land in my father's account. They enter a digital dead zone, a cryptographic stasis field. The money is programmed to remain in a state of unobservable transit. It exists, but it is untouchable. It requires a physical, biometric cryptographic handshake to release. I reach up and touch the silver whistle hanging around my neck. My UBI key. Only the physical touch of my thumb on this hardware token can release that capital. Harlan has successfully removed the $1.2 million from the legal protections of the trust, but he has placed it into a void that only I can open. He has performed the heavy lifting of grand larceny, but I am the only one with the key to the vault. He is now a man who has robbed himself. A flicker of blue light on my monitor triggers a memory. Kandahar, a cooling engine in a dark valley, the scent of burnt metal and ozone before a storm. I remember the sergeant I saved, the wild card, his blood warm on my tactical vest as I dragged him into the shadows. He told me then, always control the supply line. The judge's gavel falls, a sharp final crack. Harlan looks at the judge, then at his phone, waiting for the confirmation ping. The screen stays blank. I watch him through the camera. The cracks in the mirror begin to show. He frowns. He taps the glass. He looks at his lawyer. He doesn't realize he is standing in a spotlight of his own making, holding a handful of nothing while I hold the only currency that matters in the digital age: access. I don't smile. I don't feel triumph. I just feel the cold, sharp focus of an auditor finishing a ledger. I pick up my coffee. It's cold now, but I drink it anyway. Miller, I say, my voice a low-frequency hum into the headset. Go for Miller. The funds are in the wrap. Monitor the destination ping. If Vane's shell company tries to bounce it, lock the secondary nodes. You got it, Maya, you seeing his face? I'm seeing it, I say. I close the court window. The desert wind picks up again, screaming against the steel walls of the trailer. The spring is at maximum tension. My father thinks he's won the war. He doesn't realize he's just authorized the fuel for my final assault. The weight of the truth is a heavy thing, and I am the only one strong enough to carry it. The Baltic wind is screaming against the glass of the Ironwood Logistics headquarters in Tallinn, a sound like a distant jet engine. I stand in the center of the ops floor. Around me, rows of engineers move with clinical, high-velocity precision. This is the heart of my machine. We are 72 hours away from closing the $12 million Series A funding round with Meridian Ventures. This was supposed to be the moment my soldier past and my CEO future finally fused into an impenetrable legacy. Then the perimeter is breached. My lead investor, a sharp-eyed woman named Claire, calls me. Her voice is a flat, professional monotone. Maya, we've received an anonymous dossier. It's detailed. It lists a psychiatric commitment, a history of dissociative breaks in Kandahar, and a pending conservatorship. We're freezing the round. The spring winds tighter. My father hasn't just tried to steal my past, he is actively sabotaging my future. Meridian hasn't just stopped the money, they've sent the scalpel. Elias Thorne, a former SEC forensic investigator with a reputation for dismantling founders, arrives at my office. He doesn't look like a hunter, he looks like an accountant. He sits across from me, his eyes neutral, his notebook open. "Ms. Lawson," he says, "your corporate filings are pristine, your logistics algorithms are a work of genius, but your personal record is a black hole. Why is your military file restricted by executive order? Most people only get that for a Medal of Honor or a court-martial." I don't give him a resume. I don't give him the soldier stoicism I used in the desert. I give him the weight of truth. I hand him my encrypted laptop and the silver whistle from my neck. "If you want to know if I'm sane, Thorne, look at the code. If you want to know if I'm a victim, look at the man who sent you the dossier." Thorne doesn't just look at my files. He uses his SEC back channels to trace the origin of the dossier. He finds the cracks in the mirror. As I wait, a flicker of light from a passing ship in the harbor hits a polished metal trophy on my shelf. The reflection is sharp. Sudden, it triggers the scent, burnt metal and ozone. I'm back in the valley, the sergeant's blood warm on my tactical vest, the smell of a cooling engine thick in the air. I remember the weight of him. I remember the silence of the radio. Thorne clears his throat, snapping me back. He's looking at his screen, his expression shifting from skepticism to a sharp, predatory calculation. "The dossier came from an encrypted relay," Thorne says, his voice lower now. "But the metadata has Harlan Lawson's digital fingerprints all over it. And here's the problem for him. He wanted to show me you were unstable, so he included a redacted incident report from Kandahar to prove you were under observation." Thorne looks up. He didn't realize why it was redacted. I just bypassed the layer. "The soldier you saved in that valley, the one you dragged 2 miles under fire, he's currently the high-ranking chief of staff for the very Department of Defense agency Meridian, is courting for $1 billion contract." My father, in his desperate attempt to paint me as unstable, has accidentally leaked the existence of a high-value national security asset. He has proven my competence by trying to document my trauma. "You're not the one in trouble, Ms. Lawson," Thorne says, closing his notebook with a sound like a gunshot. "Your father is. He didn't just vet you, he gave me the map to his own execution. If the dude finds out he's weaponizing a classified rescue mission for a civil conservatorship, he won't just lose the trust, he'll lose his freedom." I don't smile. I don't breathe a sigh of relief. I just feel the cold, familiar clarity of a mission shifting from defensive to kinetic. "What's the move?" Thorne asks. He's no longer the auditor, he's the operative. "We don't stop him," I say. My voice is a low-frequency hum, vibrating with the energy of the spring about to release. "We let him think the dossier worked. We let him walk into the Greenwich Gala thinking I'm finished. I want him at his most confident when the ceiling falls in." I look out at the Talon Harbor. The gray water is churning. The spring is at maximum tension. The investors aren't running anymore, they are sharpening their knives. I am no longer just a founder fighting for her company. I am the focal point of a kinetic escalation that is about to level the Lawson name. The audit is no longer private, it's global. The air in the Greenwich Country Club ballroom is heavy with the scent of lilies and floor wax. It is a thick, suffocating atmosphere that my father, Harlan Lawson, calls tradition. I am watching the event through a series of compromised security cameras, the feed routed through a secure server in Talon and bounced off a satellite in the Mojave. On my screen, the elite of Connecticut are draped in silk and tuxedos. Their diamonds catch the light of the massive crystal chandeliers like shards of broken glass. Harlan stands at the center of the room. He is the perfect image of a patriarch in mourning. He has orchestrated the Lawson Legacy Gala, a $2,000 a plate charade ostensibly dedicated to veteran mental health. But the real centerpiece is the spotlight in the far corner. It illuminates a single, empty wooden chair draped in the Lawson family tartan. A white rose sits on the cushion. It is a masterpiece of psychological warfare. By creating a physical space for my absence, He has made my erasure a tangible fact for his donors. He is weaponizing the soldier's stoicism I carry, turning my professional distance into a tragic hollow void. He speaks into a silver microphone, his voice thick with a counterfeit tremor. "We hold this space for Maya," he tells the hushed crowd, "for the daughter who wandered too far into the dark to find her way home." I sit in the dark of my command unit, 3,000 miles away. My hands are flat on the cold metal desk. I don't feel a pulse of anger. I feel the clinical detachment of a sniper ranging a target. I watch him reach for a glass of champagne, his silver hair gleaming. He is a man who thinks he has successfully buried the truth under a mountain of rose petals. A flicker of light on the camera, a reflection off a server rack in my trailer triggers the memory, the smell of burnt metal, the tang of ozone. I'm back in that dark valley, the sergeant's weight crushing my shoulder as I dragged him toward the extraction point. I remember the silence of the radio. I remember the absolute clarity that comes when the only thing left is the mission. Harlan wants to talk about the dark. He doesn't realize I live in it. The validation gap has reached its breaking point. The spring is fully wound. As Harlan raises his glass to lead a toast to my recovery, I execute the command. Enter. The digital intrusion is not a crash. It is a synchronized strike. Simultaneously, 40 separate smartphones and tablets in that ballroom chime with a priority notification. It is a low-frequency hum that cuts through the polite murmurs and the tinkling of ice. It isn't a social media post. It is an automated legal alert from the Laramie County Clerk. I have authorized Marcus Thorne to file a notice of contested title on every single piece of Lawson real estate, including the very floor they are standing on. The room goes cold. Harlan's hand freezes midair. The champagne bubbles die in the glass. But the real strike is visual. The 3 massive projection screens behind him, intended to show a montage of my childhood photos, flicker and die. They don't stay black, they reboot into a different reality. Elias Thorne, the scalpel, has finished his audit. The screens display high-definition, drone footage I captured 48 hours ago. The Sedona facility, the place where Harlan claimed I was being stabilized, is revealed for what it truly is: a rusted, empty warehouse in a Newark industrial park. The cameras zoom in on the only medical equipment inside: rows of filing cabinets filled with Silas Vane's predatory loan documents and forged insurance claims. The spring has snapped. The empty chair is no longer a symbol of my tragedy. It is a monument to my father's fraud. I watch through the camera as the donors begin to step back from him. The physical space around Harlan begins to grow, a vacuum of social contagion. They aren't looking at a grieving father anymore. They are looking at a cornered animal. Maya Miller's voice crackles in my headset. Injunction is public. The bank just froze his primary account. He's flatlined. Understood, I say. My voice is a low-frequency hum, the sound of a machine returning to idle. Move the extraction team to the Greenwich perimeter. Secure Caleb, I'm boarding the flight. I close the laptop. The silence of the desert is absolute. Harlan Lawson wanted to tell the world a story about a girl who lost her way. I'm about to show him the woman who found the coordinates to his destruction. The gala is over. The audit has just begun. The double oak doors of the Laramie County Courthouse swing open with a sound like a muffled gunshot. I walk down the center aisle, my heels clicking a rhythmic, military cadence against the marble floor. The air in here is thin and recycled. It smells of old ink, dust, and the desperation of people who have run out of lies. Harlan Lawson is already seated at the petitioner's table. He looks smaller than he did on the gala's security cameras. The cracks in the mirror are now visible even from the gallery. A slight tremor in his hand, the way his silver hair doesn't quite catch the light. When he turns and sees me, the soldier's stoicism he tried to pathologize is what finally breaks his composure. I am not the unkempt addict of his forged affidavits. I am in a tailored navy suit. My hair is pulled back into a severe professional knot. My eyes are a clear, piercing gray. I don't look like a patient. I look like the CEO of an empire that moves more capital in a week than he has seen in a decade. I walk past him without a word. I don't look at him. I simply take my seat. The hearing begins. For 30 minutes, I allow Harlan's lawyer to speak. I sit in absolute, trained silence. I let him recite the lies. I let the validation gap grow until the tension in the room is a physical weight. A flicker of light off the court reporter's steno machine hits my retina. It's sharp, sudden. I'm back in the valley, the weight of the wounded sergeant crushing my shoulder, the smell of a cooling engine thick in the air. I remember the absolute clarity of that moment. You don't panic when the perimeter is breached. You narrow your focus until the target is the only thing left in the world. Harlan's lawyer finishes. He looks confident. He thinks my silence is a surrender. Ms. Lawson, Judge Elias Vance says, do you have a statement regarding the proposed medical stabilization fund? I stand up. I do not offer an emotional plea. I treat the courtroom like a board meeting. Your Honor, I say, I do not seek to defend my sanity. I seek to audit the petitioner's motives. I walk to the clerk's desk and place a single, biometric hard drive on the wood. I play the recorded confession. The room hears him admit the Sedona Clinic is a shell company. I project the $12 million Series A funding confirmation onto the gallery screens. I show the court that while my father claimed I couldn't feed myself, the world's most sophisticated risk analysts were betting on my brain. Then the final blow. I look directly at Judge Elias Vance. I simply mention that the soldier I saved in Kandahar authorized the release of my restricted military files. I reach into my pocket and hold up the silver whistle around my neck. The funds my father attempted to move are currently locked in a digital vault only I can open. The judge looks at the dead notary's signature. He looks at the broken man sitting at the petitioner's table. The gavel falls, a sharp final crack that echoes like a round being chambered. Petition dismissed, Vance growls. The spring has snapped. The debt of justice is no longer a projection, it is a judgment. I stand up and turn my back on Harlan Lawson. I walk out of the room. I didn't need his recognition to be a Lawson. I built the ironwood root, and it is deep enough to survive the collapse of his entire world. The courtroom doesn't erupt in a cinematic roar. It collapses in a chilling, bureaucratic silence. I sit at the defense table, my hands resting flat on the mahogany surface. I can feel the vibration of the air conditioning through the wood. The compressed spring has finally released. The visceral truth is flooding the room like a burst dam. Judge Elias Vance does not look at my father. He keeps his eyes on my military records. The judge's face is a mask of weathered stone. He knows the peppermint ledger is sitting in my briefcase. It's a silent threat. The court finds the petitioner's claims not only meritless, but intentionally and maliciously fraudulent. I don't look at Harlan. I look at the dust motes dancing in a shaft of sunlight. The $1.2 million I moved into the digital dead zone is the first domino to fall. Judge Vance rules that the funds are no longer legally protected as part of the family estate. By attempting to steal it, Harlan has functionally donated it to the open market. I reach into my pocket and thumb the silver whistle. The funds don't return to the trust. They route directly into the operational budget of Ironwood Logistics. I have just used my father's final act of greed to pay for my company's global server expansion. The liquidation is clinical. It's an audit of a life built on sand. The Greenwich estate is placed into immediate receivership. The fleet of cars and the very country club membership are stripped away. I see a flicker of light off the bailiff's badge. I'm back in the Mojave, watching the drone wreckage cool in the dirt. But this time, the wreckage is my father's reputation. I watch as Sela's vein is intercepted in the courthouse lobby. He's handcuffed. Vane's legal team has already handed over a digital drive containing recordings. The recordings prove that Harlan was a silent partner in a scheme. My father stands as the bailiffs approach him. He looks at me, his mouth opening as if to invoke family duty one last time. I meet his gaze with the same soldier stoicism. Court is adjourned, Vance growls. I stand up, I don't wait for the room to clear. I walk out of the courtroom. The weight of the truth is heavy, but for the first time, I'm not the one carrying it alone. The smell of lemon polish fades, replaced by the mental image of the vast horizon of the Mojave. My heels click against the marble, a steady, rhythmic pulse. The debt is paid, the ghost is gone, only the architect remains. The air in the Mojave is honest. It doesn't smell of floor wax, lemon polish, or the cloying, suffocating scent of lilies. Out here, the wind smells of ozone, parched earth, and the future. I stand on the edge of the Ironwood Logistics Hub, a shimmering complex of silver and glass that sits in the desert like a fallen star. The Baltic gray of Talon is a memory. The sterile white of Greenwich is a ghost. I sit on the tailgate of my truck, the metal hot even through my tactical pants. 20 yards away, Caleb is directing a crew. He's wearing a dust-covered vest, a tablet gripped in his hand. He isn't the ransom anymore. He isn't the puppet. He's the successor. His face is tan, his movements confident. When he looks at me, there is no fear, no pity, only the quiet, iron respect of a partner. I reach into my pocket and pull out the silver whistle. I thumb the biometric sensor. A small green light pulses, a steady, rhythmic heartbeat. This little piece of hardware is the only bridge between the $12 million sitting in my corporate accounts and the world that tried to starve me out. A shadow moves across the sand. A hawk circles above, hunting. My phone vibrates. It is a secure, encrypted message from a restricted satellite uplink. No name, no header. Just a set of GPS coordinates located deep within the Wyoming timber tracts, far off the marked trails and the county maps. I know what's there. Grandmother Helen's Monopoly lessons were a two-part play. The first part was the armor, teaching me to build the corporate wall, to shield the capital, to audit the scavengers. But the second part, buried at those coordinates, is the Ironwood route. It's a physical bunker she constructed years ago, a vault filled with the original, unleveraged deeds to the land and the true, unvarnished history of the Lawson lineage. She knew I would need a place to stand once I finished tearing down the house. A memory flickers, triggered by the glare of the sun off a solar array, the smell of burnt metal, the sharp tang of ozone. I'm back in the valley in Kandahar, the sergeant's weight crushing my shoulder, his breathing ragged in my ear. I remember the absolute certainty of that moment. You don't survive by hoping for a rescue. You survive by becoming the rescue. Harlan Lawson tried to build a cage around me, but he forgot the fundamental law of the desert. Anything that isn't rooted in the bedrock will be swept away by the wind. I look at the horizon. The sun is sinking, a violent, beautiful red that bleeds into the purple of the twilight. I am Maya Lawson. I am an architect of supply chains and a guardian of truths. My father is currently sitting in a sterile room, stripped of his membership, his mansion, and his lies. He is realizing that a legacy built on paper cannot withstand a daughter built on grit. I don't feel triumph. Triumph is for people who care about the score. I only feel the cold, clean alignment of a mission completed. Maya, Caleb calls out, walking toward the truck. Manifests are clear. The first autonomous fleet is across the border. Good, I say. My voice is a low-frequency hum, steady as the desert floor. Keep the sensors on a high-gain loop. I don't want any shadows in the data. You heading out? I look toward the north, toward the coordinates in Wyoming, toward the route. Yeah, I say. I put the silver whistle in my cargo pocket. I have an audit to finish. I climb into the driver's seat. I turn the key. The engine settles into a rhythmic, powerful thrum, the sound of a machine that knows exactly where it's going. I pull away from the hub, the tires kicking up a cloud of honest Mojave dust, leaving the ghosts of Greenwich to settle in the dark. The spring is still, the debt is paid, the ironwood stands. The true measure of a life is rarely found in the trophies we collect or the titles we inherited. It is found in the quiet, unyielding architecture of our character when the world goes dark. Respect is not a commodity to be demanded through status or coerced through manipulation. It is a sacred resonance, earned only when our internal reality matches our external projection. When we choose to build a cage around another's truth to protect our own illusions, we do not just diminish them, we hollow out the very foundation of our own existence. Authentic value lies in the courage to acknowledge the agency of others, recognizing that every human soul is an independent architect of its own destiny, entitled to the raw materials of honesty and the freedom to build without interference. This narrative serves as a stark reminder that power without principle is merely a stay of execution against the inevitable gravity of the truth. There is a profound philosophy in the resilience of the natural world that applies to the human spirit. The hardest wood grows slowly, often in the harshest conditions, because its strength is derived from the depth of its roots, not the brightness of its leaves. We are all, in a sense, auditors of our own legacies. We must ask ourselves if we are constructing monuments to our vanity or fortresses for our integrity. In the final accounting, the validation gap will always be bridged by the weight of our actions. A life built on the shifting sands of deception will eventually be reclaimed by the wind, but a life rooted in the bedrock of empirical truth is impenetrable. Thank you for walking this path of grit and reclamation with us. If this exploration of legacy, truth, and the power of personal boundaries resonated with you, we invite you to join our growing community. We would be honored to hear your thoughts in the comments below. How do you define the ironwood in your own life? To ensure you never miss a chapter of these cinematic journeys, please consider following and subscribing to the channel. Your support allows us to continue peeling back the wallpaper of the modern world to reveal the raw, honest stories underneath. Until the next audit, stay grounded.